Aloha kako, I'm Chef Gooch and you're watching KTA Kitchens. Wintertime, weather's cooling down a little bit. Holidays coming around and nothing beats a good stew or a braised. So here we go. We've got braised chuck with chickpeas. We've got about 2 pounds of your diced chuck. We're going to that about 1 tablespoon of salt, about 1/8 of a teaspoon of fresh cracked pepper. And to this, we've got our 1/2 teaspoon each of our coriander seeds, cumin, mustard, as well as 1 Hawaiian chili pepper that's been chopped up. We've got our 1 cup of red wine, 1 pound each of carrots and celery, as well as 8 cloves of garlic that's been chopped, 2 large onions that's been diced. Over here, we've got our aromatics. We've got our 1 bay leaf. We've got the parsley stems from the half bunch that we picked, and just a nub of smashed ginger, and 1/2 a stick of cinnamon. Over here, we've got 1 pound of steamed and diced taro. This is the moi variety. 1 to 1.5 cups of dried chickpeas that's been soaked overnight. 1 16-ounce can of diced tomatoes, and that half bunch of flat leaf Italian parsley that's been picked and chopped. So the first thing that we're gonna do is, we got our heavy pot here. We got the heat on. We're gonna get it nice and ripping hot. We're gonna sear our meat, give up a nice crust, nice brown color. You want that pot nice and hot. The other thing that we do is, we're gonna season it first with a tablespoon of salt that we were talking about earlier. What this does is that, pre-seasoning your meat, salt hits the side, it helps to draw out the moisture. It helps to kind of dehydrate the surface a little bit, it help get those colors developing. So once we've got our heavy pot ripping hot, we're gonna add a little bit of oil. We're gonna wait till it gets that shimmering, that dancing off the top that we were talking about. And we're gonna brown our meat in small batches. Remember, you don't want the meat on top of each other. All it's gonna do is steam. You wanna have enough space between each piece so that it browns nicely. You hear that? That's what you wanna hear. That's hot. So once we've got our meat nice and browned, happy, put it off to the side and we let it hang out. With the fat that's remaining, and if the bottom of the pot looks a little dry, go ahead and add like another 1/2 tablespoon of oil. You just want enough to barely cover the bottom. We added in our onion and our garlic. We got it browning right now. She's getting happy. And off to the side here, we've toasted our spices. We got a pan nice and hot. We added in our coriander, our cumin, our chili pepper, and our mustard seeds. You want it to start to release its flavors. It gets hot, all the essential oils come to the surface, and that's where you get your good flavor. So once you're done, go ahead. You can put in a spice grinder, or my grandmother's suribachi over here. This is a Japanese mortar and pestle. Go ahead, stir that pot. And you just want to grind it up. So, remember, I talked about it once or twice before about my favorite kitchen utensils. One is a cast iron pan, and 2 is this suribachi over here. You can do everything in a suribachi. Everything. So once you got your spices nice and ground up, put that off to the side. My onions are ready here. I'm gonna go ahead and add my 1 can of chopped tomatoes. You see that liquid at the bottom. What the liquid is doing is it's deglazing. It's taking off all that wonderful goodness at the bottom if you haven't burned your pot. We're gonna let all this stuff get almost dry, or what we say in French, in cooking terms, is à sec. We're gonna let this thing sec. Should bust that out at your next family party. And mom, I'll go let the stew come sec first. You can get slapped if you're saying something else. Okay, so once we've had our tomatoes almost sec or dry, we're gonna go ahead and add our 1 cup of red wine. We're gonna let that come down too. All right, so once we've brought down our red wine, the tomatoes are all cooked down, everything's kind of coming around, we got ahead and we added our ground beef, the chuck. We're gonna go ahead and add our warm spices, coriander, cumin, a mustard seed, a chili pepper. We're going to ahead and add our aromatics, which is our ginger, our cinnamon, our bay leaf, and our parsley stems. And we're going to add our chickpeas. Give it a mix. First off, don't forget our chicken stock. And once again, we're going to add, the recipe calls for 4 cups, but it's just a guideline. We're going to add just enough chicken stock to barely cover everything. People often ask, what's the difference between a stew or a braise? It's really simple. Technically, a braise is when the liquid only comes up halfway to the meat. Stew is when it just barely covers like this, just like so. So right now we're gonna let it hang out for about an hour to an hour and a half, depending. Remember now, simmering, lazy bubble. You want it to be at a lazy bubble. So we've had our stew going for about 90 minutes now. So we're gonna go ahead and check it. Flavors are developing. Smells are coming out. You can smell it. The coriander, cumin, all that's starting to come out. So at this point, I check my meat. And at this stage, the meat shouldn't be falling apart soft. It should be starting to feel like it's getting tender. Just about there. We can go ahead and add our veg. Carrots and our celery. The reason why I add my carrots and celery later is that the meat takes longer to cook than the vegetables. And most of us don't like mushy vegetables. You want it cooked just right. You want everything to come up and finish together. So after about 3.5 hours, you can come back. You can check on your stew here. We're gonna check the meat. Meat is literally almost there. Another 10-15 minutes and we're good to go. Vegetables are almost perfect. At this point, our steamed, our diced taro goes right in. Give it a nice mix. Once again, check for seasoning. Go ahead and give it a taste. You know, it really helps to taste your food every step of the cooking process. Even when it's half done, just go ahead and taste it. You're not gonna die. And you know, cooking is all about reference. It's about referencing flavor, referencing the past, places that you've been. All of those experiences is what makes us better cooks. So once we got everything done, we're gonna add in our parsley. You want parsley to taste, some of your herbs, especially parsley, you want it to taste fresh. So you don't want to add it early. It's gonna break down, you're gonna lose the whole flavor of it. Yeah, and that's it. Nice, warm spices, something that, you know, in local cooking, not a lot of us are used to. We're not used to throwing in a whole lot of cinnamon and, you know, cumin and coriander, but, you know, don't be afraid. There's nothing different about like Mediterranean food. Once again, going back to flavor references. You don't have any cumin and coriander, well, that's okay. If you got Italian spices, throw that in. You can change it up. But once again, it's just a guideline. If you don't have flat leaf parsley, throw in some chopped basil at the end. You can eat a stew with anything you want. Bowl of hot rice, some naan bread, just a nice dinner roll. But whatever you want, don't forget to finish it off. Personally, I love it with a little bit of sour cream or mayonnaise and a cold malt beer. And always taste it. Warm flavors, a little bit of heat, soft tender meat, cold day, perfs. So once again, I'm Chef Gooch. You're watching KTA Kitchens, and mahalo for hanging out.